My name's Adele Onyango, and welcome to another episode of Legally Clueless. No, seriously, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. Hey you, welcome to this episode of Legally Clueless podcast. I am super excited to have you back here if you're an OG member. And if you're new to this podcast, welcome. Better late than never. I truly do appreciate having you here. Audio episodes like this go out every single Monday. And then we have our tour series and our video series on our website. And while you're there, you can sign up to officially join the family and get letters from me. So sign up for our newsletter there. The Legally Clueless Gazette is what we call it. Speaking of our tour series, I am very excited. I'm back home after 13 days on the road through Uganda, Rwanda, and Ethiopia. I feel like the exhaustion has finally left my body. Now that I know for a fact that I'm an introvert, I am very aware of how speaking to people, which, the work that we do here of gathering African stories requires, I am now very aware of how it just drains me. So even when I got back, I did not really speak to anyone but the super closest person to me for like 3 days, because I was just like, hey, enough humans. But it was such a wonderful trip. I have so many stories, and we are going to start sharing those with you towards the end of April. So I'm just going to hold on to all my stories so that I can share them with you at the same time as when I'm sharing the stories that we recorded in those countries. And let me just say, I met the most amazing Africans, and specifically amazing African women. I just felt so empowered. Oh my goodness, so empowered. I feel like with every story that we recorded, I felt more hopeful for my continent, more connected to it, and more sure that I'm definitely doing exactly what I was placed on this earth to do. That's such a loaded statement. I can't explain it better than that. Like, I just felt like, yes, at this moment, I'm doing what I am meant to be doing. And I also felt like it was preparing me for something bigger. I don't know what. I'm clueless about that part. But, it was meaningful work. So I'm going to tell you first. I'm whispering because I'm not meant to tell you until next week, but I can't wait. Clearly, I'm horrible with secrets. So we want to do an exclusive, very exclusive, very, very exclusive screening of some of the episodes of our tour series. And I genuinely feel like, yes, we do have partners, we do have friends in the industry and community that we would like to invite. But I feel like a large chunk of our invite list has got to be open to you, which is why I'm telling you first. And if anybody on my team hears me telling you first, they're just going to be like, this is not what was agreed on. Shirley, what are you doing? Anyway, listen. So, is that something you would be down for? Like, if you would definitely want to be at the screening, you would want an invite, let me know. Either comment on this episode, wherever you're listening to it on, or hit us up on our Instagram page, which is Legally Clueless Africa. There's a link to it in the show notes. Okay, secret done. Please don't tell anybody else that I work with that I have blurted this out to you, but whatever. Okay, so I'm really excited about this episode because we get into part 2 of Rhoda's story. I don't know anybody in my life who has ever given or donated an organ. And so a little later in this episode, you will get to hear just how hectic that process is. Listen to this.
I told her personally, I feel strongly like I want to give my dad one of my kidneys. I remember someone told me, don't you feel you're too young? You don't have a kid, you're not married. So my dad went in, was asked the questions, and then was out. Then my mom was also asked for my mom had to get a DNA test confirming that I am her daughter. It was a lot. So I'm there in the waiting place. Then I hear someone singing. And it was my dad singing on such a day.
So that's coming up in a bit. And yeah, part 2 of Rod's story. But before we get there, the song of the week. Listen, I am such a huge fan of Sir. First, I think I probably have the hugest crush on that man. I love how gangster and grrr he looks. You know what I mean? And then he opens his mouth and you're expecting like hardcore rap, but this angelic, beautiful voice just like flows out. And I've watched him in interviews and he's just so, I don't know, he like stands on business and he really owns his listen, there's a crush. There's definitely a huge crush. I have this thing. Let me just share. So I find men with shoulders, like, you know what I mean? Like shoulders that are there, not the ones that are like frumpy and kind of just disappear, like shoulders that announce this. Shoulders that announce themselves. It's such a strange thing, but I find shoulders so attractive. And Sir has the best pair of shoulders. Listen, the song I want you to check out is off of his new album, and the name of the song is Brighter. It's such a feel-good, inspirational song. I think you'll like it. I really dig it. And if you're listening to this on a Monday, it's definitely a song that will chase away your Monday blues if you have those. So link to the song is in the show notes. So let's jump into Rhoda's story. It's part 2 of the story. And, you know, when I was listening to the story, just her conviction about wanting to donate her kidney to her dad, at the part 1, I was just like, wow, is she really going to go ahead with it? Like, are they going to let this young girl do this? And then part 2, you just kind of understand how invasive and heavy surgery is. You also understand how many people were doubting if she should be doing this process to begin with, and her just like fighting against that at the same time. But anyway, listen to the story and then we can chit chat about it afterwards. 100 African stories on Legally Clueless. Stories from Africa.
So later on, it took some time for my dad to be out of hospital, but at that point, we had already made a decision to start the process of having a transplant. Now, we had conversations with the doctor on which route to go. We had conversations with other people who had gone through the transplant, and we got connections. We met a very good doctor, Dr. Vijaya, who is a surgeon in India. She saw us, she encouraged us, and we felt that it was right. So we started another process. Now my dad was okay with getting the transplant done, but now we started the journey of the process of getting a transplant done, which is a long journey on itself. So at this point, after I'm the one who was deeply connected to this. I used to take my dad to hospital. I knew his medication. I knew I had met the doctors. I had had conversations with Dr. Vijaya, and I told her personally, I feel strongly like I want to give my dad one of my kidneys. She said, that's okay. But she said, now you have to go through the process. Now, coming back home, all my siblings wanted to give my dad the kidney. All of us, all 4 of us. But now, being the deputy parent, I felt like this was my role as a deputy parent, to be the one who gets to do this, and of course, whatever happens, to protect the rest of my siblings. So we did the first initial tests. I remember me and my brother, but I really begged him to be the one doing this, because honestly, I feel like God had placed the burden in me. It was really heavy, and I felt like it was me to do it. So yeah, later on we did the first initial tests, and both of us were a match, but I decided to be the one going forward with more tests, because anyone who has gone through transplant, you know that the tests are many tests. I honestly felt like, you remember that night when I've mentioned I took the results? I feel like God placed a burden in me to do that. Okay, now that we decided that I'm the one going through with this, of course, I thought of ways of protecting myself. So I asked my family to keep it private, not to tell everyone, maybe close relatives and friends. But now, some of the close relatives and friends were the ones trying to convince me to change my decisions. I remember someone told me, don't you feel you're too young? You don't have a kid, you're not married. You shouldn't be the one doing this. I mean, your dad has experienced his life. It is time for you to experience your life. You'll be cutting your life short by doing this. So from that comment, I realized that I need to protect myself. And I decided not to have conversations around it, but only with people who had gone through that process. Because I felt those are the ones who understand it better. And of course, medics. But I realized in Kenya, people are still not okay with it. But I feel like if it is something that happened to your loved one, it is something you would do without thinking about it. It was scary. Of course, I had those fears. And I think one of my greatest fear was, let me go back kidogo. I had started preparing my body. I had lost a lot of weight. I was in good shape, but due to the pressure that was coming with all this, I gained a lot of weight back. Now, my biggest worry was, will my body be able to do this with the weight? Of course, I talked to another medic. They told me, no, there's no way. With your body size, no way. So this kept ringing in my head. Like, is my body really strong enough to do this? But I committed to it. I kept going. So maybe I should mention that the process in Kenya, now we settled on having the surgery in India. The finances needed are a lot. A lot of money was needed for this process. And remember, because of my dad being in ICU and all that process, the 2 years, we had really drained our accounts. So we ended up having to sell a piece of land so that we can be able to finance. And of course, we had people, friends, the church, people who really came in to support us financially. I mean, a lot of people came to support us financially. So yeah, we went through the process in Kenya, which is it's a long process. You have to go through, of course, the initial checkups here in Kenya to confirm that you're compatible. And then now it has to go through the entire process for the government to protect the donor and the recipient, just to make sure that I am not being forced to do this. And once I do this, I won't come back to blackmail my dad. Yani, just to confirm that the process is legit. So yeah, after we finished the process, we traveled to India. We were ready to travel, and of course I was happy because I did not want my dad to fall ill again, at least till we are in India. So we finished the process. We went to India. We traveled on a Sunday. It was a beautiful day. And I remember we were traveling, my dad, my mom, myself, and my brother. So on that day, we even came to church. I came to church, and after service is when we went to the airport and traveled. The journey there was okay. I really enjoyed Dubai. My brother and I, being explorers, we left my dad and mom somewhere and we went to explore Dubai. And then we got to India. The hospital had organized everything well. Someone picked us and we went direct into now another very long journey of getting to the transplant. We got there on Monday morning. Straight when we got to the airport, we went straight to the hospital. We were registered. We did all that. Then we started to do our first initial tests. So the first lot of tests was done on that day. It took the whole day. Then in the evening, we went to rest. Of course, the doctor was so kind to us. The experience on that day was okay. I couldn't complain. I was like, okay, I can do this. And of course, they had someone explain to us the whole process of what will happen till transplant, and they did a good job of explaining the process. So we went to rest, and later on the next day, now we came back to now the full intense testing, and it was a lot. I remember in Kenya I met a lady who had given the husband the kidney, and this lady told me that, Rhoda, I'm going to tell you one thing, that it is a sacrifice. Just keep that in mind. This is a sacrifice. I didn't understand what she was saying till now we started having the intense tests. And I knew, what did I get myself into? It was a lot. It was draining, but we had support. We had counselors speak to us as a family, and also to me individually and to my dad, just to help us to sort of cushion us through the process. It was intense. It was like 3 weeks of intense testing. Then finally, we were about to do the transplant. So on that day, they ran tests and they figured out that my dad had a flu, some sort of, I think they called it swine flu. And he needed to be in isolation, and the rest of us had to be on antibiotics for 5 days. So this is the first time the surgery is not happening. It was really disappointing. So my dad was admitted for 5 days, I think. He was in isolation, and all of us were on medication. So yeah, we got through that, and then we were like, yes, we are now ready to get the transplant done. So one night the doctor said, okay, you come, we check you in so that we can prepare for the surgery the next day. Now, in the process of doing tests before admission, I coughed. The doctor asked, who is that who coughed? I said, it's me. I stayed the whole day under AC, and I think the AC gave me some allergies or something. She was really concerned. So she ran some few tests on me and realized I was running a fever. And she said they couldn't admit us. They had to cancel the whole surgery because I had a fever. The second time, the transplant was not happening. So I had to be taken, had to take antibiotics again, and flu medication just to get over the flu. So the next time I was going for checkup, just for the doctor to see if I'm okay. So I get to the doctor's office. I've finished my antibiotics. I've finished flu medicine. My temperature is okay. Everything looks okay. And the doctor says, we can do the surgery tomorrow. We need you admitted by today. I'm like, today? She says, yes, today. Let's get over with it. So we go back home. I remember it was my brother. We go back home. Oh yeah, here is home in India, not home here. So we go back to the place we were staying in India, and we tell our parents that the doctor said we can go in for the surgery, for the transplant, and we need to be admitted immediately so that we can be prepared. Before I say that, you remember I told you we were having some professionals helping us through the process. Now in India, they also have to do their own process on their end. So we had to go through a long process on their end, but also we had to meet a board of some sort of board that had to verify that I have consented to it and I am not being forced to it. And they had to give their approval that this is okay. So we went there. They also interviewed my dad, my mom, yes, and myself. So my dad went in, was asked the questions, and then was out. Then my mom was also asked for. My mom had to get a DNA test confirming that I am her daughter. It was a lot. When I say the tests were intense, they were intense. So later on, it was my turn. And when I got to the room, I realized, they are really old men and women, not youngsters who are not even laughing at me. And then there was a cameras recording. And I remember one person asked me, Rhoda, why do you want to give your dad a kidney? I said, because I strongly feel like I'm the one supposed to give him a kidney. Then another one goes ahead and asks, but you have 4 siblings, you are 4 of you. Why not the other 3 siblings. I told them that it was a decision I made. The other one asks that, do you think that having you are not married, you don't have a child, do you think that this will stop you from having children in future? I confidently said no. It won't stop me. It won't stop me. Then another one asked, do you feel like, are you in a relationship, or do you think it will affect your relationship? I said no. Let's keep in mind that at this point, my husband now was busy hovering around. For lack of a better word, he was just there being supportive, being present. He even volunteered to be left at our home while we were away, because I was really concerned of where our dogs could go. So he volunteered, I'll stay with the dogs, I'll feed the dogs, I know how important they are. So he was really present, always talking to me, calling me, asking me how I'm doing, if I need anyone to talk to. He was always there. At that point, we weren't dating. He was just a good friend, but he had 2 intentions. But saa hiyo nilikuwa no, I can't commit to anything till I am done with this process. The other lady asked, I remember this strongly. She kept quiet and looked at me straight in the eye and asked, Rhoda, do you know this is life and death? We all kept quiet. The room was totally silent. And I said yes. She asked, so what happens if you going through this major surgery? You might go in and come out, or go in and not come out. What will happen then? I remember saying strongly that it will be worth it. If I don't make it out of that surgery and my dad makes it out of it, it will be worth it. So yes, they approved the surgery. And now I'm back to the surgery day. So surgery, the day before the surgery, 28th February 2019, we were admitted, and going into the admission, the process of admitting you, we had to sign consent, blah, blah, blah. If anything happens, those usual consents. And now my mom and brother had been told to go home. So it was just me on the other ward and my dad on the other ward. So we had to sign consent for each other, which was really funny. So we started the process of prepping for surgery. And anyone who's been through that process, it's quite intense. So I didn't sleep the whole night. And I was on call with now my husband the whole time, and my best friend. This time we do not, because of the past 2 times we had told people it's happening today, and it didn't happen. So this time we decided, no, we're just going to keep it close. We are not going to overshare. So only a few people knew that the surgery was happening on that day. So I stayed up at 6 a.m. They came, told me now we're ready to go for surgery. Of course, I told my now husband. That time he was just a friend. I told him, okay, they've come to wheel me out. And that was the last person I spoke to. No, of course, I also sent a message to my best friend. And I told her, okay, this is it. So they wheeled me out. I actually left my phones there. I think they gave my mom later on. So they wheeled me to the surgery room. So I'm there in the waiting place. Then I hear someone singing. And it was my dad singing on such a day. So yeah, we spoke kidogo, then the doctor came. Still, I have people asking me, do you want still to go through with this? If you've changed your mind, we can cancel everything. And I still confirmed that I wanted to do it. The sweet surgeon, Dr. Vijaya, came, prayed over me, and prayed Psalms 91 over me and my dad. And it was just, I remember there was music on the background. I can't remember the exact music, but since I love music, that was really soothing for me. Of course, they explained to me they're going to wheel my dad in first, then they'll wheel me in. So later on, they wheeled my dad in, and my dad was just busy making jokes. So later on, they wheeled me in. So the surgery started. In the room, I had several people, quite a number of people. I can't remember, but at that point, that music was still playing in the background. I wish I could remember the song, but I remember it was some soothing music playing in the background. So the doctors introduced themselves. They still asked me if I want to go on with this. I confirmed that I still wanted to go in. The same question, this might go either way. You might come out of this or not come out of this. I was ready for it. So one of the doctors said, allow us to confirm if this is working. And that was putting me out. So the surgery began. So several hours later, I woke up. I heard a lady's voice calling my name, Miss Rhoda, Miss Rhoda. But in my head, I'm like, no, where am I? This is not Kenya. I was like really confused. And of course, after surgery, the pain levels are insane. So she introduces herself and the rest of the doctors and the nurses that were there. No, I think they were mostly nurses. They introduce themselves and they tell me that the surgery went well. My dad, I asked, where's my dad? I tried to speak out, but of course you understand from surgery, you can't even speak well. So they told me that your dad is safe. The surgery went well. He's in recovery. I could have cried at that point, but I was in so much pain. But it was all worth it. I was like, oh, it was all worth it. They introduced themselves. They told me I'm in India. They told me the time. They told me all these things, just trying to figure out if I'm coordinated. I asked them where my dad is. They told me that he's safe. They updated me. I asked them for my mom. They said that she'll see me later, but she's around. As for my brother, they also said he's around. And then, it was time to transfer me to ICU. And once the doors from the surgery were open, it was like a movie. The way you see lights and they have to run. I don't know why we were running, but we were running. But once we were out of there, I saw my brother. I was so happy. I was so happy to see him. And the first thing he told me is like, we did it. Dad is okay. You've done it. Still, I was in so much pain. I couldn't speak out. And of course, I had oxygen and all. I was communicating with my eyes. So then later on, after the running, we were taken in now to the ICU. And guess who's there? My dad. It was I can't explain that feeling. That it was the most satisfying thing that I think probably that I have ever done or I will ever do in life. I don't know what the future holds, but so far where I'm seated, it is one of the most satisfying things I've done. It wasn't easy. It is a sacrifice, just as the lady had told me. It is a huge sacrifice. So we started the process of healing. Healing from such surgery is not easy. And later on, everything was okay. My dad had adopted the kidney well. It did not fail. He was perfectly okay, very talkative. And of course, his body was like, it has been jump-started. And mine was like, what the hell has just happened? So we started the healing journey. Recovery was well. So we had to travel back later on after a few weeks. Of course, I had to travel with a lot of support on wheelchairs and all. So we traveled back with my brother because my visa by then had expired, so we had to travel soon. So I came home, and when I got to the airport, guess who was waiting? My husband now, and he had flowers and some of our support system. Honestly, we still have a great support system. And I think from that season, that is where like our friendship really blossomed because now I'm going back home. I was with my brothers, and now he was still around to help us. And I had people come in and out. A lot of my friends came in that season. I felt a lot of love in that season. But I can honestly say one of the greatest support I got was from him, because he kept me in check even mentally, because healing from that is a lot, not physically only, but also mentally. So he kept me in check, and yeah, it blossomed into something very beautiful. And now we are happily married, and yeah, now we are here. 5 years later, and I can tell the story without crying. Yeah. So my dad is doing well, very strong, energetic. He went back to his businesses and to ministry. He's doing very well. And I thank God that he used me, because I remember at one point I asked God that if you're going to do this, then I won't take it I won't take it lightly that I am doing this, because it's not an easy process. So I really thank God that he's been able to keep him healthy. And through this journey, I've been able to support many other kidney donors in the process. So maybe what I can just say is, one, organ donation is not a life sentence. I mean, I am here, and there's so many people who are here today, and their lives go on normally. So don't feel like that if you give your kidney to a loved one, that is the end of your life. No, it just might be the beginning. It might honestly feel like it is the beginning of another life, because right now what it has done to me as a person is I am more, if you are in hospital today, I am one person who can drop everything and come to hospital, because it gave my heart some sort of softness. Such things, people handling relatives with chronic illnesses, I am more, is it empathetic? I don't know. My heart honestly feels like I should help. I can do something to help. And even if I don't have much to do, just being present and working with people through that journey is more than enough for me. So yeah, I think it has changed my view of life. It changed my view of love, because I think having my partner support me through that process, and we weren't even dating, made me be reassured that indeed he honestly loves me, because working with someone through that journey is not easy. So yeah, it has changed a lot for me as a person, and my view just in life, that even that daughter that you give birth to and you don't think, because honestly I don't think my dad thought that I got a girl and this girl would come and save my life years later. So it just teaches me that life is mysterious. We don't know what life holds, but whatever life holds brings our way, we need to just embrace it and be brave and face it without questioning, and block the negative voices from outside.
Catch more African stories in the next episode of Legally Clueless. How insightful was that? Again, as I said earlier, I do not know anyone. Like, I'm trying to go through the list of my associates, friends, and people that I know. I don't know anybody who's ever donated an organ. And so hearing the processes, even just like in Kenya that she had to go through, and seeing like a board, and then having to do the same thing in India. And one of the people she's kind of like, who are like interrogating her, just reminding her that this is a matter of life or death. And I think that part really sat with me, where I was like, oh my God, that's true. Any form of surgery has like severe risks, and this one is pretty invasive, right? Oh, I also like the bit where she spoke about the after and how her dad's body felt rejuvenated, and then hers was basically on the opposite side of that spectrum, like trying to adjust to what has been lost. Do you know what I mean? And I was just like, wow, that was a huge sacrifice. And I love love. So I just loved her finding the love of her life in this entire scenario. I don't know. It's a story that I liked the story. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. You can drop a comment on whatever platform you're listening to this on. Actually, speaking of that, I want to share a few comments that we got in last week's episode on our Spotify page, I believe. Some people said, this is a powerful story. I completely agree. I love that she has a great connection with her dad. I never had a relationship with my father. I resented him for some time, but now it's either a distant negative feeling or nothing. That's heavy. But yeah, as I said in last week's episode, I think I've gotten past the negative feeling around my dad. And I don't have dad envy anymore. So when I hear like Rhoda's story with her dad, I'm just like, oh, that's so beautiful. Like, I'm happy that she can experience that. I don't feel envy anymore. But that's really because I'm actively working on my father wounds. Another comment said, I love this episode so much. Just like Rhoda, I was a daddy's girl and he went through the same thing. Unfortunately, he passed on in 2016 from kidney failure, diabetes, and high blood pressure. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry about that. I really feel for people who lose a parent, especially one that you have a deep connection with. It's just hectic. Especially like now, I'm very aware, maybe because like my community or social support system has drastically reduced, and I'm very aware that I'm an orphan. Like, for example, when we came back from the tour and I was touring with, very special person, and they, in my other trips, would be the person who would pick me up from the airport. So normally I would call them when I land or like chat them throughout my trip, and then they would pick me. But they were now on the trip with me. And so when I landed, we were just going to take a cab. And when we landed, they called their mom. And I was just like, I wish I could do that. I have just achieved this beautiful thing. It's something I've worked really hard on. The one person I felt deserves to celebrate any win with me is my mom. And she's just not there. And even after that, I'm like, even if my dad was alive, I could have just like, called him. Even if we're not close, just to be like, at least I have a parent I can call. But I don't have parents. And I think there's like a secondary wave of acknowledgement that I'm going through right now, where there's parts of me that's just like, what the fuck? I'm an orphan. It's almost like it's a news flash to me. I really don't know. And so it's tricky sometimes. I feel lonely in that context of parent-child relationship. There's a lot I wish I could do with my parents now, and I just don't have that, and a part of me has to sit in the discomfort of this feeling so that I can acknowledge it and not run away from it. It's very tough. And so if you're listening and you've lost a parent or you're also an orphan, like, I'm just giving you so much love and so many hugs, because it is rough. It is rough. Remember, if you want to share your story on this podcast, we have a storyteller form in the show notes. Just fill it out and we will get back to you. We have correspondence, which means that we record stories all year round. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. We will get to you, okay? You're African. We think your story is valid and we want to hear it and we want to share it with other Africans. Speaking of sharing, remember, let me know if you are into coming for the screening. If that's something that you could consider, let me know on our Instagram page. Oh my goodness. I really cracked myself up. Anyway, if you're in Kenya, make sure you check us out on Trace Radio. We're there Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Just go to traceradio.co.ke to stream us. I believe we've come to the end of this episode. Bev, anything else I meant to tell you? I don't think so. Oh, yes. I am wishing you tons of grace this week. That's it for this episode of Legally Clueless. You can share this podcast with your friends. You can keep it for yourself. I'm not judging. Just make sure you're here next week for the next episode.